Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Hello, hello, hello. I have a question for you. Have you ever felt completely lost? You know, seeking purposeful direction that could and should propel your mission within your divine journey to that next level, but still it hasn't happened. Well, my name is Lauren Michaels Harris, and I'm the founder of P3, the Journey Series. People come to me because they're wounded. Many are scared, and even there are those who are bruised simply because they feel that they are increasingly, for whatever reason, losing their ability to dream. Now, this P3 program is not for a person who's just looking to start a business, no, but rather for those of you out there who have been on your journey and you've been navigating within your divine purpose, but you still desire to elevate to that level that you have not reached yet. If this is appealing, if this describes you, then I want to have a chat with you. I want to hear your story. So use the link below to get registered for your free seat at P3, the Journey Series. And let's get started, one story at a time. I'll see you inside. Click the link. Because now I know when something happens in our lives that is unexpected, you have to go into it in order to ever have any hope of coming through it. So when you go, guess what? When you come out the other side, you grow.
Brought out more in me than I thought that I didn't even know that I had.
That has given all of us a great hope for what we can do with our own messages, our abilities to deliver, but most importantly, to deliver it in an authentic and very, very intriguing way.
Have you ever been in something or felt something where the only way you felt you could deal with it was to leave, get away? I thought that was the meaning of control. It took me 4.5 years to stop looking around the room of my life, of my journey, of my purpose, digging in cushions for a remote that never existed. Looking, re-looking, going back and upgrading, bringing in and pulling out things that do not serve you must go. Those things out in this world that are designed to bring us down, to keep us down, put their foot on our neck and whisper to us that we're never good enough, they don't whisper. They yell at us.
from all directions, top to bottom, bottom to top, side to side, side to side, corner to corner, and corner to corner, 365 days. When somebody asks you about yourself, don't you dare whisper. When they ask you to raise your hand, don't you dare half raise it. When they ask you something good about you, you scream it with all you have. Come on now, get up, get up. Tell me who you are. Show me who you are.
My greatest truth of all, that not everyone has to remain lost.
Good morning. I'm feeling good today, everybody. How you doing? It's Thursday, and it's a great day in the neighborhood. It snowed. I'll put that in there. It snowed yesterday and last night here in the Chicagoland area, but just a dusting, not too much. It did stick, though. There was accumulation for sure. And I'm just feeling great to be alive. I'm feeling humbled. How about you? Right? One word, put it in the comments. How you feeling this morning? Hopefully, we're going to take what's already great to greater, what's already nice to nicer. You know how it goes. Hey, I'm Dr. Lauren, and I'm your host today and every day, Monday through Friday, here on Bathrobe Moments. And year number 8 about to come to a close for us, 50 weeks a year, 5 days a week. And we're so humbled and grateful, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you. Today is another great show for you. One particularly close to my heart, because people who do the real service, not to take anything from anybody, but I feel the way about today's guest as I do teachers. I used to say before I started this work, I thought teachers should get paid like doctors and lawyers. But now, after meeting so many here on this show and doing interviews over the years and getting to know some of these people, I realized teachers, just like these first responders that we're going to meet one today, I think they should get paid like judges and surgeons, because they're both teachers and people who care for our kids. They're protectors. People like our guest today, Christoper Hoyer, first responders, they're protectors. We take a lot of that shit for granted, y'all, but you don't have to get up with it every day and go to sleep with it every day. The sacrifice that these people make is the biggest part. As a veteran, I appreciate when people say thank you for your service. I do. But it often leaves me wondering if they understand the depth, the breadth, the width of the sacrifice. You guys, that's the bell of purpose. I'm going to ring it throughout the broadcast as warranted. And what I mean by that is when there's some truth out there, something like, can I get an amen? Hallelujah. I'm going to hit the bell because it's a reminder. It's an opportunity to tune in, y'all. We're distracted people nowadays, but that bell, just like the truth, they both have a ring to them. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to get to there. Last thing before we get Christoper in here is welcome my sidekick, Lucy McGillicuddy Ricardo. She's been here all 8 years. Now, let me tell you something about this guest we have today. an author. He's an author. Is a retired police officer from Arizona, but he was born and raised in New England. That's interesting. I don't believe I detected any hint of a New England accent. So we're going to find out what's up with that. Now, he says he's been labeled as a protector. Well, there you go. I knew I heard it somewhere. As a protector, survivor, and advocate for mental, physical, and emotional wellness. But he believes himself to just be a regular guy with a fair amount of experience. Now, after 20 plus years as a street cop. Now, that's important because that means he was not sitting behind the desk. Nothing wrong with that. Taking, answering the phone, dispatching, that sort of thing. No, street cop. It means out there, rain or shine, even when the mailman gone to bed. Street cop is still on the beat, okay? Let me ring the bell. So anyway, he's seen a lot. He said, worst horrors imaginable. And it's early in the morning, so I don't know how far I'm going to go into that because I don't know how scared I get. So anyway, you guys put your hearts on the screen. It's our virtual way of saying welcome, 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 because he's never been here before, but we hope it's not his last time. He's coming down the hallway as we speak. Put your hearts on the screen. Christoper Hoyer on the way. Well, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you.
How are
Thank
you?
I'm just fantastic. Thanks for the invite. So,
What an odd-shaped head you have. There's
know,
a
right?
cone with, that's a Christmas tree. I thought you were the cone heads from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I like to do that coming out of the back right here.
Do you remember the cone heads? Are you old enough?
I am, absolutely. I am, yeah.
You are?
Oh yeah. Born in 1969. So yeah, I'm there, man. So,
Wow. Okay. You look really good, Christoper Hoyer. Something you've been doing is agreeing with you. So, I want to do something a little different today. Welcome to the show, by the way. You're sitting in Arizona as we speak?
San Diego.
San Diego. You're in San Diego. Okay. Ooh, that's right. And thank you for getting up with the crack of dawn. I appreciate it. Listen, you guys, before we get started, we're at 1,109 people. We're trying to break the record from 1 week ago today, which was 1312. Not far off. We can do it right now. Share the broadcast out. This is great information today. Where's my call to action? I'll find it. But you know it there. Share this out right now. You can. Bless somebody in the manner in which you want to get blessed. You'll be grateful you did. Okay. So listen, Christoper, I want to get right to it. But I thought I found this thing on YouTube. I just want to show a second or two of it just to set it up for you. Let me see here. I'm going to come back over. Okay. I'm not very techie, as you probably have already ascertained, but I am going to do my best here. Let's take a look at just a minute or two of a little something we found on YouTube about PTSD, a silent struggle for first responders. And when I'm going to ask some questions today, you guys. You haven't heard what we're going to talk about today, I guarantee it, but we needed someplace to get started, so here we go. Take a look.
I was the city commander in the police department, and we had a barricaded individual who was heavily armed in an apartment house, multifamily apartment house. So I had to make the choice, the decision to either road that you could go to, either make a complete, a breach, an immediate breach, or evacuate civilians. So I took the time to get the civilians out. We didn't know where he was. We're playing cat and mouse with him. We had no idea in 23 apartments where he was. And we saw activity in the window in the back. I had people that were looking, and and we gave them a warning, something's going on in there, but they still had to go through the door. When they hit the door, a gun battle ensued. I was on the outside. I was in the inside with the officers, but it seemed to last forever, and it seemed to drag on forever. It seemed to be just an innumerable amount of shots that were fired, then dead silence. And I said, "Oh God, no," because I knew what that meant. And then I heard the screams for help. That one officer shot, two officers shot, and went right down the line. And I'm running around like trying to get help into the building and trying to get officers help. I'm not even seeing what's going on with me. And others saw it, thankfully, but I wasn't even aware. I wasn't even cognizant of where I was starting to spiral down at that location and at that time. When they took the last body out, that's when I just lost it. I completely lost all my emotions, all control over my emotions. And thankfully, two officers saw me going down. I was actually going to go down into a dead heap on the ground. I was going into, I felt like I was going to faint. And they picked me up and they put me in the back of a police car and rushed me to the hospital because they thought I was in a medical emergency. I was in a medical.
Wow. That was like some kind of a movie right there. Just the way the music and why I chose that clip was because it gets you exactly to the point I wanted to start at. The realness of what first responder means. You know what I'm saying, Christoper?
I do, absolutely. Oh yeah.
Because there's so much going on, always is, always has been, back and forth. And you know, it's interesting to me how you know, all that stuff, and defund the police and this, that, other. But as soon as somebody needs something, who they pick up the phone and call? You see what I'm saying? So it's like you want your cake and eat it too. But we're not going to talk about that today much. We're going to talk about we want to get to your book, When That Day Comes, Training for the Fight. I want to get into that definitely. But I want to start with, tell us how you got started and just give the audience a little backstory about your 20 years, the highlight points, or, you know, you know how to do this. I'm going to just step out for about a minute and let you run with it, then come back in. Okay,
sounds good.
All you.
First generation law enforcement. I had no inkling whatsoever to be a cop, and I just decided one day I thought it'd be fun to go out there and chase bad guys, and turned out I was right. It just because I was kind of green and didn't understand the culture of really what I was getting involved with. Like you talk about PTSD, there was a lot of things that happened during my career that kind of shaped the life that I'm living now, which is fantastic. And it took a lot of failures on my part to finally figure out where I needed to be. And luckily enough, I was able to overcome all the traumas over a 20-year career and survive and thrive. So.
Okay. All right. We're gonna come in tight here on the screen so we can kind of get into it. Okay. So the first thing I want to ask you is this. I believe, because I was in the Air Force, and one of my good friends in there, a woman, Dee, wonder where she is nowadays. She was an air traffic controller, and she hung out with the MPs. And if any of you, especially enlisted, two groups you don't hang out with if you're enlisted, if you're an NCO, is the officers and the MPs. The MPs don't have any friends but each other because you don't trust them. And it's a weird thing to say. But what I learned from being good friends with Dee and her being good friends with them was the level of stress that and a lot of people don't put air traffic controllers up there in that list, but they should be. Because what they have to do, you know what I'm saying? Right. And all the things that come with it, the residual effects of having that career. Because really, people like yourself and others, it's for many, it's not just a job, it's a calling. And I found it interesting that you started by establishing that you were first generation. Because I'm sure you've worked with people who are third and fourth generation, right? It runs deep. What is that? I mean, I get it in the military. Yeah, my dad was in the Army. So is it a sense of duty?
It was for me, as it turned out. I mean, I had no idea that, I was going to get myself so involved, and when I figured out that it was exactly like you said, it was a calling, I fell in love with the idea of being out there every day. In fact, I've been trying to get back into the community. I've been gone for 6 years and I love it so much. I want to go back and start all the way over again, which is insane, but it's just, it's something that gets in your blood and it's a lifestyle and it's just awesome. I mean, there's very few jobs that you can do that have all of the stuff that, law enforcement offers, so.
Well, wait a minute. Let's start at the end then. If you left 6 years ago, but now you want to go back, what made you leave, if we can ask?
Well, it was kind of a strange thing. It was actually a radio call that basically, with all the trauma that I had seen, when I had this one particular call, it just kind of pushed me over the edge a little bit. And I can give you specifics on that if you want to. But
yeah, we get. We got strong DNA in the house today with our people.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, share the story. The truth is your truth.
So, I mean, let me start at the end. Like I said, so
It's
now,
not gonna mess up me eating my Cheerios and banana, is it?
oh God, no, please do.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, so it's not gory. Okay, good. Let's go.
No, not at all. So I, when I figured out that I was okay, which took a lot of effort to get to that point. Believe me when I tell you,
What do you mean? Okay.
Well, that I can put on a uniform again and go out there and perform my duties to the best of my ability. You know what I mean? And in my 18th year, that all kind of came crashing down. And in my 20th year, again, it all came crashing down to the point where I thought, well, maybe I should just call it quits for a while. And I wanted to stay in the community as an instructor. That's how I ended up out in California. And I never left the community. I've always been an instructor since I left. And
1 foot in still.
1 foot in, yeah, exactly.
Is that the epitome of what they mean when they say they'll take me out of here kicking and screaming?
Well, pretty much. I didn't want to leave, but I also knew that I had bigger dreams to move to San Diego and be by the beach and so forth. And that's what I ended up doing.
That's not just your dream. I like some beach myself. But wait a minute. When you said it came crashing down, what is it?
Basically, the trajectory of my life changed in one ambush / gunfight, and that was in 2016 in my 18th year on. So
kind of like what that guy was just describing.
100%. That brought back a lot of memories when he was talking about that. Yeah, because I was virtually a very similar situation I got myself involved with.
So, well, why do you say that? Why do you say got yourself involved with?
Well, so, I can't blame anybody else for anything that ever happened to me, because everything that happened was stuff that I volunteered for. And, in like radio call fashion, or because, I signed my name on the dotted line. Now, did I sign up for it, quote unquote, like we say? Technically, no. I don't really buy into that whole theory, but I did volunteer for it, and it's not the same thing. So when the big one hit for me, I can't point fingers and say, oh, it was everybody else's fault, because I jumped at the opportunity to take this radio call, and I did. It just turned out that it was it just went bad. That's just how it was,
So that moment, we've all seen it. Excuse me. We've all seen it. We're watching, take your pick. Oh, I remember when I was a little kid, my mom loved watching Dragnet, right? And they'd be sitting there drinking coffee or whatever at the diner, eating donuts.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I had to get one of them in. And then you hear the radio, which on that show was in the car, but somehow inside they could still hear it. And remember emergency, 1 Adam 12, 1 Adam 12. When that voice, that dispatcher's voice comes on, what button is being pushed in you that everything you drop the coffee, the donut, out the door, jump in the car through the window, and off you go. Not quite that, but you know what I'm saying. You don't even think about it. What is that thing in you all, you first responders, that when you hear that first thing, everything just blanks out and you just are on it?
I think it boils down to opportunity, an opportunity to help and to save. And in my case, to, as silly as it might sound, to like get into something, and I didn't really understand what that meant, unfortunately, during this particular call in, like I said, 2016. And when that call came out, I was actually in the middle of impounding some evidence at the precinct. The call came out, and I didn't even listen to it at first. But then when they asked for a scout, quote unquote, I happened to be plain clothes that day, and it was like 15 miles out of my area. And they said, hey, we need a scout to go check out this house. I dropped everything and hopped in the car and flew down there as quickly as I could.
I'll take it, that kind of thing.
100%, yeah. And even at 18 years on, I was still hungry to chase bad guys. And the opportunity to go out there and do what I can to help out my other squad mates and the other patrol guys. I lived for it. I did on my entire career. So.
Wow. That's almost like a little superhero thing. You know what I mean? Where, like, you waiting for the bat signal.
Yeah, I mean,
Anybody, right?
You can have that mentality, and then when you realize that you're not that, and you get humbled very quickly. When in my case, I came as close to death as I ever have before. It's like holy shit, what just happened here? And
Right.
it's a complete wake up call, as it was for me. So.
A lot of people that I've interviewed over the years or just talked to and met, that do this kind of work or any type of jump on it, hop on it, response based work that nobody else wants to do. A lot of them report that it's just they have an instinct too, a nose for the work. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's just in me. It's in my blood kind of thing. Would you say that was the case with you, or is still the case with you, that it's just in your DNA, you're programmed this way?
Well, I got to say, I mean, I had no idea what really the law enforcement community looked like. When I got hired on, I thought it was going to be, like Martin Riggs and Lethal Weapon, go out there, chase bad guys, and, go home and come back next day and do it all over again. And when my light finally turned on, and I realized that this was a natural transition from my career, I started to like it, and then I fell in love with it, and I never wanted to leave it until everything kind of came crashing down around me.
On that day.
That day, and then again, several major back-to-back incidents
wow.
all occurred within the next 2 years. And
like a Lemony Snicket's kind of thing, an unfortunate series of events.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And, it wasn't because, the events were specifically traumatic for one in particular. It was a culmination of all the stuff that I hadn't processed through, because that's what we do as cops. I'm like, nope, I'm good. Pounding my chest and thinking to myself, I can handle this. And in all reality, I couldn't, you know what I mean? So
now we heard in the clip from that officer about his situation, the ambush and whatnot. The number of officers were lost that day. But yours is a little different, but still the same. There was a casualty, at least one that day that you were talking about, if I'm correct. But it was a lot closer than just officers that were on the scene with you. Talk about who it was and how it went down that day.
So the basic call was a burglary, and this kid, he called 911, said basically he's going to get into a shootout with the cops. Actually, I lied. He called the father. The father called 911. And that's why they wanted a scout to go check out the house and make sure that, okay, let's lock this thing down before we just go rolling up with some patrol cars. So we get down there, and I'm scouting the house, and I'm putting out the information on the radio, and everybody starts to show up based on my intel. And what nobody knew, including myself, was where the guy was on the scene. And when one of the guys on my sister squad, Dave, showed up with his partner, the guy basically opened fire and ambushed Dave and killed him. So
where was this perpetrator?
Well, without giving away too much of the story, he was actually inside of his van in the driveway. And
so you were sitting ducks, basically.
Well, that was where, as it turned out, that's where, for me, the complex survivor's guilt kicked in, because I was out there and I'd been on what they call the neighborhood enforcement team, the net squad, for, at that point, 16 years, 14 years of my 18-year career. So I had 18 years on, 14 of those on the specialty team. And that was my job, to scout the house. That's what you guys called me to do. And I never saw the guy inside the car. And looking back on it, I mean, I beat myself up a lot, and I still blame myself on some level, but there's no way I was ever going to know where that guy was. And he was. And
this was a kid.
Yeah, well, he was 20 years old, so I call him.
Yeah, I'm 62. That's a kid to me. Their brains aren't even fully developed.
And and he was on drugs too, just suicidal. He didn't have a record or anything. He wanted to go out with a blaze of glory, and unfortunately, he took one of us with him. So
didn't fit any profile.
No, not at all.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about this with the young people, if we could. Are you okay with that for a second? Because it has been escalating, and I'm telling you, after COVID or during COVID, I don't remember when it started, but for about 3 years, I kept getting calls to go to schools where there had been some kind of shooting thing or something. Even a scare is very traumatic to young people, to anybody, I would say. Lori Whitney, I didn't know this, says that she just learned yesterday that a young grade school shooter shot 2 young students and then shot himself at Butte County near Oroville, California. Simply a sad tragedy, of course. And you never know if your kids are safe at school. Now, this is the point I make when it comes to this sort of thing. I want to know what because I do a lot of work with inner city kids, right? And they're afraid, and the parents and the kids are afraid of losing their lives on the streets, going from the projects to school or wherever they're going, gangs and traffickers and all this stuff. But these kinds of kids, and I'm talking usually kids in rural areas, Caucasian for the most part, have to go to school. I guarantee you, I bet you anything, that shooting that they're talking about right there that Lori did, that is white. I could be wrong, but in most cases, you see what I'm saying? And these kids are afraid. Yeah, I get it. You're afraid you're going to lose your life on the street. But can you imagine, like what Lori said, afraid to go to school because you might not come home from school?
Yeah,
what goes through your mind when you hear or read what I just popped up on that screen as a law enforcement?
Oh, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And the first thing we want to do is, of course, we want to rescue everybody, but it's a culture thing as well, because now today, of course, the cyberbullying and all that kind of stuff, it gets in kids' heads, and everybody in the world's got one of these, and we're all connected to these things 24/7 now. And that's their life. They're not doing a whole lot of stuff outside of their house or their computers or their phones. And so they're being fed all this information. I mean, it's overwhelming, the stuff that they're exposed to.
Right.
And
right.
We as officers and first responders and educators and all these other people trying to get in their heads and let them realize that there's a whole lot more to life than just, playing video games,
Thank you. Right there. I was you read my mind, Christopher. You read my mind, because I was going to go into this. I was thinking about that officer again from the clip, right? He looked old enough to have grandkids, right? Yeah. Now, what do you think would happen? This is speculative, but speaking from what you know to be true with the PTS and all this, because you were triggered when you heard him describing it. So that's why I'm asking it to you. You can relate. If you walked in, let's say you walked in and a young person was playing a video game and it was a shootout, because that's basically what that's what they're in there doing. Everything's all about killing.
Yep.
What would that trigger, if anything, in you? Well, I mean, what do you think? Look at the two. Someone who's experienced it in real life and someone who thinks this is what it is. Boom, boom, boom. Do you think that those games and stuff plant something inside, like the shooter from yesterday that Lori was mentioning, or any of these young people? How much of you know what I'm asking?
I absolutely do. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, and Dave talks about that quite a bit.
What's he saying?
He says, and I absolutely agree that, a lot of these kids, like you mentioned earlier, their brains haven't developed yet.
Yeah.
And can't differentiate between a video game and reality sometimes. And they think that when they make a kill, that's a point. And then, you make a kill, you get a bigger weapon, and you can make more kills, and then you get another bigger weapon. So killing is success in their brains. A lot of these really younger folks, they can't differentiate between that and reality of life. And so when they get cyberbullied and they're attached to their phones, and the parents, I mean, I'm not dogging anybody for any reason, but the parents don't know how to handle them, and they throw an iPad in front of their face and go, okay, we'll go sit down and do whatever you're going to do, instead of taking them outside and throwing the football with them or stuff like that. That's what they're exposed to. And they think that's what reality is, and then they get a hold of dad's gun, they go to the school, and they start shooting the place up, so.
Do you? Yes, I do. Yeah. Thank you for that. So do you remember, I remember back in the 80s and stuff, and when I was out in Phoenix, stationed at Williams Air Force Base, where you're at in Phoenix, and the big thing then was road rage. People getting out of their cars on the freeway with baseball bats and stuff when someone cut them off or something, chasing them until they, that kind of stuff. It was just out of hand. And it kind of seems like this is an extension of it, but I would never think, I mean, I could almost see, yeah, you piss me off, I'm going to get out, but I'm not going to bust your windshield out. I thought that was a bit much. But now it's a whole new level. People are, even kids, are just reaching for guns to settle. We used to, when I was on the schoolyard back in the 1800s, when I lived in Walnut Grove, because that's what it feels like. We didn't think about even using any kind of weapon. It was like, be outside, be on a football field after school. Meet me behind the gym after school. And everybody be lined up, remember? Circled around waiting for the fight. But you didn't see people bring out knives and stuff. Like, we didn't settle our differences with that kind of, what is going on, Christoper?
Well, to touch on your point, and then the next day, what ended up happening the next day? You guys are best friends, right? You fight it out, and then you guys are buddies, and then you guys you're for life, right? And that's how, and I've had that happen 100 times in my childhood as well. So
yeah. Not today.
They've got something to prove, whatever that is, or they're so isolated and they don't think that there's another way out. So they figure, well, I'm gonna go make a name for myself and then take my own life, which is a whole nother conversation, obviously. So it's extremely tragic. It is.
It's very tragic. Let's swivel over to this point, because this is something you deal with and all first responders deal with on a daily basis. It kind of ties into your book title, When That Day Comes. When that day comes, for what?
Yes. It could be anything.
Right.
And I do a lot of traveling public speaking, and I talk about, my gunfight, and how that changed my trajectory. And I exemplify that it doesn't have to be a gunfight. It can be, like, unfortunately for me, my first critical incident was me having to shoot a dog. And that was in 1999. I'm devastated over that still. That could be the one thing in any person's life. Doesn't have to be a first responder. It can be anybody that just hits a dog with a car that could change their trajectory, And so basically what I'm saying is I don't want people to diminish what it is, like my wife, she stepped on a snail a couple of years ago and she's crushed. She's like, oh my God, the poor little snail. And I'm like, for me, I'm going, well, yeah, I don't like to kill anything, but don't discount the fact that whatever your trauma is, it's your trauma. It's yours to own. You deal with that however it is that you see fit. And
wait a minute. That's a really great piece back there. When you said, I don't like to kill anything, I saw hunters in my mind's eye at the time. And I was like, well, what's the difference between you and the officer who loves to hunt? Is he more inclined? This is speculative, y'all. I'm not really asking him to be able to answer this. There's no way he could. But think about it. I wonder if there's a correlation between, was it a justified kill, that sort of thing. Those people that get in those sticky situations, all in the name of wearing the badge, where there's investigations and stuff where that's a little bit, you know what I'm saying? If they're avid hunters, trigger happy, you know what I mean? Let's talk about that. Is that something you can detect when a person's just itching for a fight? That, a lot of people believe if you look for something hard enough, you'll find it.
True. Yeah. The good thing about that is most of those guys, they don't last because
that's good.
And I can tell you, being involved with as many as I have, when that happens, more often than not, you're very, you're kind of slapped upside the head and realize that, man, this is, it sounded better in the brochure. And then when you physically survive it, you're like, wow, that sucked, and I don't want to go through that, But as far as the hunting thing goes, I think that guys, it's more the thrill, out in the wilderness of, man versus nature kind of a thing. And very few times I know a lot of hunters in my life, and it's more on the side of, the track and, taking that shot, not really, it's not a predatory thing. It's more of a survival thing, and it's, I'll tell you, pretty much any hunter that's like a true hunter will tell you that it's a respect thing. They respect the animal because they know the animal's giving up their life for them, but they also, they don't waste anything either.
That's right. That's right.
They'll kill a deer and then just go home, They'll kill a deer and then they'll take care of business.
Use all like the Native Americans. They use everything.
Pretty much, that's where I agree with that part of it all. I can't raise my weapon to an innocent animal, and I can't do it. I mean, I have in the past, unfortunately, just to save my own life or the life of somebody else.
Sure.
I just don't have the ability to go out in the bush and just kill something. I mean, I wish I understood that better, but I just don't. So
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. What I look at, which makes me know, man, I don't know if I could do. I don't think I could do it. What you guys do when it comes back to the title of the book, when that day comes, because you get up every day and you leave home. But it seems to me where I could, like, if back in the day when, I used to leave home to go to work, but now I don't, it's here. But for those who get up and leave, you might look around, say, okay, everything's locked up or whatnot, getting kind of going. I'll see you at a night house. But when you were doing this work, did you leave every day and look at everything as if this could be my last, just in case this is my last glance at you? Let me take a good long look. As far as being grateful for the things in your life and not taking them for granted, do you find that that's different if it was on a VU meter or some type of something where we could measure it? Do you think that is different when you're not going on the street, as just like now when you go to your regular job? Is there a difference on how you look at through the gratitude lens?
For me, no. And when I was on, back in the day, and I'm going to assume a lot of guys will probably agree with what I have to say, that, you don't think about that because now you're kind of doomsdaying things. You're like, oh my God, this could be my last day.
Oh, yeah. That makes
sense. In
sense.
your brain, and you start thinking about stuff. You're like, oh my God. And then you start getting scared. And then that leads to hesitation. And
that's the worst thing.
100%. So, and then jumping very, very small, because I know you're very much into this. When you start to realize that you're not in control because it's all spirituality and all God, when you experience true, life altering situations, particularly critical incidents, that's when you start to realize that, your time is up. You just don't know when, so when you go and you hit the street, whatever you're doing, like I go to work every day and I'm like, okay, if today's my day, then today's my day, so.
Christoper, did you guys ever talk about it? All of you that worked in the law enforcement world, like when you hear about what Lord put up, those senseless things where the gunman or the perpetrator tries to take as many people with him as he can. What do you think that is that makes somebody want to take innocent people?
There's a documentary that I watch pretty much every year. It's on 9/11, and there's a guy that's talking about that. He was he was right down the street from his area was right down the street from the Twin Towers, and he makes a comment that I use in my public speaking when I go out on stage, and he says something I always wanted to deny was how evil can be, and I think that's exactly people. They're not necessarily rooted in evil, but they get on drugs and their whole world is collapsing around them, and evil steps in, like in my case with Dave, when he was killed, a really good friend of mine pointed out, she says, there's God everywhere, but sometimes Satan has a hand in it too. And I'm like, oh, that was a big wake up call for me right there.
It was a big wake up call for you.
Oh, it absolutely was.
100%. How so? And talk about that. That's important.
Well, I was always a believer, and I was always very faithful and spiritual and these kinds of things. But when Dave was killed, my linear life took a complete 90-degree turn, and now my spirituality turned into that relationship that a lot of people understand. And now I kind of get it, right? And it was a combination of so many different things between, Dave being killed and me almost being killed and me coming, face to face with, imminent death, if you will, and realizing that again, on so many different levels. I talk about this in the book, not a ton, because I don't want to promote all my stuff to everybody in the world. That hey, you got to do what Chris Hoyer says, because that's not what I think.
Dave was your partner, right?
He was on the sister squad, and we worked together. So he was, I call them the JVs, and we were on the senior squad.
Okay.
But he was very much like me. He was a go-getter. He wanted to go out there and chase bad guys, and that's why he responded to the call.
When was the last time you had talked to him prior to that encounter?
It's funny because I did my very first podcast back in 2020, and his widow, Kristen, happened to be on there as well. And I had told her something on that show the first time. She never heard it before. And I was joking. I said, Dave's a giant pain in the ass because he won't let you do anything because he takes all the stuff. Like the last time I had a conversation with him it was a drug arrest, and he knew that I got off at 4:00 and it was only 2:00. And he goes, I got it. I go, dude, it's my stop. I got it. And he goes, you want to go home? I go, well, kind of. He goes, then I'll take it for you. Well, who does that? Cops don't normally do that. They're like, you catch him, you clean him kind of thing. And Dave was not like that. And she started laughing. She goes, yeah, that's how he was. And so that was probably about a month beforehand. And, I couldn't, I'm like, dude, you're jumping into a situation that you don't even need to be part of, but for my benefit, you want me to go home. So you're going to take this huge investigation and run with it, that's how he was. It was fantastic. So
dude, when things happen, like a fallen comrade, it's just, you're moving along and then out of nowhere, everything is changed forever. And you take that risk every single day. Let's go to the piece that you stand in front of people and talk about, because you don't just stand you do a lot of speaking in front of law enforcement, correct?
Yes.
So what is it you say to them because that would be a tough crowd, because it seems like every single one of them would have their own mode of self-preservation and protection and mindset, and like baseball players and stuff have rituals. Yep. You know what I mean? Or so, and I believe because there's a lot of superstitions attached. I've heard that before, that they do because so much is attached to your gut feelings, your intuition, your instincts. So when you're standing in front of that's a tough crowd. What is the message that you most commonly bring to that group of people?
It's a tough. You're exactly right. It's a tough crowd, and a lot of these guys, they're not ready to hear what I have to say. And the way I present my stuff is it starts off in my bio, and then I point to somebody in the crowd and I say, how you doing? And it's always the same answer, and I ask the same question as somebody else, and I put it up in quotes on the screen, and it says I'm good in quotes. And that's how officers respond to most things. Like, we're locker room talk. Hey man, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. We're getting ready to hit a door. I'm good. You good? Yeah, we're good. And this is how we operate. And
so it's just I play the audio response.
Typically, because a lot of, like we talked about before, where guys don't want to face the reality of what they're doing, and because that instills fear and then hesitation, and then we know where that goes. And so after I do the I'm good slide, I play the audio from our day, and then I say, ask that question again. I said, you're going to be good after this. Now let's unwrap where you are. And I very much, instill in them, hey, this is organic. It's a matter of time. And that's how I titled the book, When That Day Comes, Training for the Fight, because it's a matter of time. And it doesn't have to be a critical incident. It can be you're going through a divorce. It can be like when my firstborn was 6 months old, he had a seizure, and that lasted for 24 hours, 7 seizures over a 24-hour period. Hugely traumatic. I mean, it was like, oh my God. And he survived it, and he's 100% fine now.
Yeah. But at the time,
oh my God. I mean, what do? You've got a 6-month-old baby staring at you going, you're my father, help me. And I can't.
You feel helpless.
Absolutely. 100%, And
so okay, go on.
It's a lot of work related stuff as well that you just got to deal with, so
let's go back to your belief system. What was it like? Because a belief system serves as a form of a foundation of sorts, something you can stand on when you're beyond your human capabilities. So before you embraced what you have today as a belief system, what was it? Did it feel like you were standing on thin ice?
I was probably, like a lot of my colleagues are, mostly in denial, because it was literally just, let's just go chase bad guys and just go home, and what happened for me was, and this is why I do what I do, is I want guys to understand. It's like, look, please just be the toughest guy out there, but a matter of time before it catches up with you. And I talk about the processes of how to get through certain traumatic events and, daily life and all these kinds of things to let guys realize, hey, if you made this decision to go chase bad guys, that comes with a price. And it's not something that is going to be life ending necessarily. I mean, God willing, but there are things that are going to happen in your career that are going to change how you see the world, and it's very commonly known that, you go into the profession to change the world and you come out of the profession changed by the world.
Change. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just how it is, and a lot of guys, myself included, most guys don't realize that. They're like, oh, it's throwing a badge and a gun. I go chase bad guys and I do these great things. And over time it starts to wear on you. And that's why cops become cynical and jaded and untrusting, unfortunately, because of all the bad stuff that we see every day.
Yeah.
So.
Let me ask you something. And on the screen, you guys, is the cover of the book. There it is. When That Day Comes, Training for the Fight, Christoper Hoyer. And we're going to make sure that you get the link where you can get over to Amazon and grab that for yourself. It'd be a great gift. Now, let's talk about, I want to ask you a question before we go into who the book is for, okay? Because some people might think it's just for people that are first responders, but that's not the case, is it?
Absolutely. No way.
Okay.
Go
ahead. Who's the book for? Go ahead and answer that.
Yeah, mine's for everybody. And it's not just first responders, like you said. It's for the families of first responders, equally as important. But just general people that don't necessarily understand what first responders do on a daily basis. And I throw some funny stories in there. And even though my wife, who did all the editing for me, she laughs when I say this, but I'm like, I got to forgive my audience for the language because it's a cop book. Let's face it.
Yeah.
And that you have to kind of have that in there to have an understanding of how bad guys operate as well. And so, I apologize for that in the beginning because some people aren't ready to read that kind of stuff, but it's not like insultingly bad.
Right. But it's the truth of the situation.
100%. Yeah. So
absolutely.
What I mostly want people to know is that, for me, my career was law enforcement, of course, but trauma is trauma. And I don't care like with the snail thing or, you hit a bird or a dog, whatever it is. And don't get me wrong. Also, it's not some dark book all about trauma and all this woe is me kind of a thing.
Yeah.
A lot of it's very lighthearted on purpose. A lot of it's really funny as well, because cops have a sick sense of humor. And I also want people to have an understanding of what that looks like as well. But there is also a lot of stuff in there about how I dealt with the mistakes that I didn't face early on that were faced for me, if that makes sense. And when I had no choice and I had to face those things, now it's like, this is what I did to get where I am today, and now living my best life ever. So
best life ever. Hats off to that. Let me ask you this one, because I remember as a little boy, and I have toys everywhere in here and I was just sitting here thinking about how when I was a kid, it was cowboys and cops, the kind of thing where if we were a bunch of 7-year-olds and you came walking down the street or came up to us at the grocery store in uniform, we'd be like staring at your gun and we might go, got you, right? And then you'd go, oh, remember when little boys would do that and look at that.
Oh, yeah.
How is it today when you're in uniform and little boys or girls see you and they are the perception is skewed? They think all you do is kill people because they go, because little ones do it in the shopping cart.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I love it when I see little kids. And the one thing that I don't like is when the parents are there and they're like, well, you better be good because I'm gonna tell them to take you to jail. Like,
they threaten them with you.
Right. And I'm like, don't do that. I mean, that's sending a bad message, of course. And I'm very much, I talk to you like I talk to bad guys, like I talk to my wife. I don't change my personality. So when I see little kids out there, my personality stays the same, and it's very much, from the heart and very giving. And I want them to understand that, hey, we're here to help you and to protect you and to play too. Because I used to do that all the time. When I would be out on the street, I'd see a bunch of kids playing basketball. I'd park my patrol car and I'd get out and I'd just walk over there, very nonchalant with my hands in my pocket sometimes, which is not really super safe, but they're kids, so not a big deal. And I'd ask them like, hey, who's your fastest runner? And they'd be looking around like, what do you mean? So, well, who's your fastest runner? Okay, let's find out. And I challenge them to a race. And I'd always let them win, or who can do the most push-ups. All right, let's go. Let's see how many push-ups you can do, and I'll do it with you. And then that turned into a community thing. And then the kids were like, oh my God, hey, it's Officer Chris. Hey, Officer Chris. Hey, let's go play basketball and these kinds of things. And that's how I generated, community interaction with the kids to get them to realize that, yes, cops are, they're forced to do bad things from time to time. But generally speaking, we just want to go out there and be good people.
Be good people. Yes, absolutely. Man, this hour has gone fast. I want to, before we get out of here, though, Chris, let's talk about, do you believe that there should be, I have a disclaimer. No, that's my ADH, y'all. Do you believe there should be a disclaimer presented? I think I mentioned this before too, about recruiters in military, about PTSD, that when, before you hit the MEP station and raise your hand and then are inducted, someone should talk to you, some type of a therapist or a counselor, that, the percentage of people who do this work come out of it with some form, some shade of PTSD ahead of time. Now, what does that look like? What does that possibly mean for you? And you have no idea until it's too late in many cases. So my question to you, Chris, do you believe that when people are headed to the academy or signing up, because I have a coaching client that wants to be an officer. He started at the college he was at as security, and then he asked me to do a reference letter a couple of weeks ago for a job in a town as a police officer. It's what he's following in his big brother's footsteps. Now, I often wonder, do they talk about, that too? Do you think young people should be warned or at least made aware of you're stepping into the type of a career / calling that comes with something that you don't get when you go to work at Kroger's? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Well, how do you feel about that, Chris?
I think that here's a problem with my community and veteran community and military stuff like that. We want that challenge, because when you say stuff like that, it's like, okay, well, let's see how bad it is, because I want to, whatever it is, I will sacrifice myself to wear that badge, and that's a lot of the mentality. That's where a lot of guys are very successful in the hiring process, particularly. And then, over time, they start to realize that it's very difficult. But I absolutely agree that, it should be noted in there that, hey, by the way, it's not all sunshine and roses, because there are bad things that happen. But the majority of folks realize that, it's going to come with a price, but nobody ever knows what that is, because you can't predict what your career is going to be. But again, that challenge, they want that challenge. They want to accept that, because that's their calling. That's their first responder in their blood mentality, or their military mentality.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want to go out there and serve my community, whatever it takes, and for me, it was the same thing. I'm like, just give me my badge and my gun. Let me go save the world, and I didn't know what that came with. Now I do. So
perfect. So. I love it. I love your story. I love the work you're doing. You didn't have to. And I get it. Sometimes it makes you not the popular guy in the room. I know this, and I innately know this, and my hat's off to you. I salute you for doing the work that a lot of people just would walk away from. So thank you for that. Thank you for your service, but most importantly, thank you for your sacrifice. And I mean that. Thank you. Yep. We're going to have Chris back one day, you guys. I promise that. Remember to get out and get the book. We're going to drop the link to that, as well as this LinkedIn link inside your comment section here in just a moment at the conclusion of today's broadcast. And I also think that this is a good opportunity to put this book in someone's hands, maybe a young person that that's considering a career in law enforcement, or like Christopher said, just in your family, in your community, just to keep the conversation alive, because that's their job. That's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to keep us all safe and alive. Okay, so there you go. I want to thank you again, Christopher. It's been an awesome experience for me, and I know it has been for the audience too. Thank you so much. 1,053 of you. Thank you so much for being here and making this moment in history possible. Listen, I promise to meet you, God willing, tomorrow morning over on the front porch for our Friday final episode of the week. God willing, I'll be there. In the meantime, get out of here. Go find your greater self. That means look for the ye and the R. You're already great. Tonight, when you go to sleep, hopefully you will have done something that makes you greater. Get out of here. Don't let my screen door slam as you leave. And remember, I tell you every day, and I mean it, Dr. Lauren loves you. There's not a damn thing you can do about it. Have the best day ever. Bye, Chris. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Show me your soul. Baby, I'll show you mine. Show me your soul. Honey, it's way past time. How expensive do I have to be? Need I spell it out before you get it, baby? Show me your soul. And honey, I'll show you mine.